Welcome back to another VanTech Tuesday.
Hello guys.
Let's get to the questions, and boy oh boy have we had quite a few questions in last week, so this one's going to be a bit of a marathon, I think.
Okay.
Let's go first of all with someone's asked me, but it kind of fits in with you as well. How is your EE data package working in the EU? Because I've read that you can only get 2 months at a time. So far, obviously, we are not. We're about a month out of the country. It's still fine, and oddly enough, we're not data capped, despite them telling us that we can only get 19 gig a month. I've used in excess of 70 gig right now so far, and it's all fine.
Yeah, with our phones, we are probably, in the majority of cases, you'll be capped to 20 gigabytes a month on your EU roaming, and like we have been, we can only use our phones for 2 months. We've been out in Europe for longer than 2 months, so now our EU roaming has been suspended, and everything we use on our phones now is chargeable.
Yeah.
So we're having to use Wi-Fi to continue using data.
And that's giff-gaff, isn't it? So
yeah, it's on the O2 network.
yeah, Mandy's on 3, and she's been cut off, or she reached her 22 gig cap or whatever, and they texted her and said that's it. So EE for the win.
Yeah, because I mean, even though that we had paid for a 40 gig service, you still could only use 20 gigs.
Do Spain and Portugal have airs service park ups like they do in France, and are they as good? So far, I can only talk about France. You can Spain. Sorry, you can talk about Portugal. But I would say they're not as neat and tidy as France, but they are pretty much exactly the same. And if not, the service stations are equally as kitted out over in Spain. So
yeah, they definitely do have airs in Spain and Portugal, and there's an airs book which we have, and there's a map which has got all the airs printed on it. So I'll get John to put a link in the description below to the website where you can purchase the airs books from. We've got the ones for Spain, Portugal and France, and they're brilliant. They're like a get out of jail thing. If you're stuck for somewhere to park,
yeah,
you can always find an air.
Okay, next question. This is a good one. Why don't you, John, use a pure sine wave inverter, and why did you tell Greg to buy the same inverter as you? Well, I used a pure sine wave inverter as an example in my inverter video, but as I said in my video, I'm only going to use my inverter for appliances, and therefore I purchased the much cheaper modified sine wave inverter, and it's absolutely fantastic, no issues, and I have actually used it to charge my laptop once as well. And the reason why I recommended it to Greg was because I was so impressed with it. And
yeah, from my experience, we had a pure sine wave inverter, and it didn't work. You know, everything would charge okay and things would power okay, but they were inoperable. We couldn't use them. None of the screens on any of our tech devices worked. And then when we used the modified sine waves that John recommended, everything works perfectly. So you can't really judge a book by its cover,
no,
you know, because these modified ones actually, they work great.
Yeah, well, the ones that we've used so far, yeah, can't recommend them enough really, and for the price, they're absolutely brilliant. Here's a one. It's from a gentleman who's had an accident and no longer has use of his legs. So I'm really sorry, an unfortunate situation there. And he'd like a solar panel and new batteries fitted to his van, and asked me if I could, when I come back to the UK, if I can fit them. And it kind of like ties along with a lot of other questions that Greg and I both get, is can you come and work on our vans? Can you build me a van? Etc, etc. And what I'm really going to suggest is not that I don't want to help, because both of us, in fact, if you watch and comment on our videos and actually get in touch, you'll find out that we do reply.
Yeah.
Greg goes way above where I would reply. But we try and help you as much as we possibly can over email or comments, but physically doing the work, we're kind of set up in the vans ready to go out and enjoy ourselves. So what I'm going to suggest here is, well, I'm going to suggest one thing, Greg's going to do another one. My suggestion is to use CJ, who's Project Amber on Instagram and on YouTube, as he, specifically for this question, did used to work at a company that modified motorhomes for disabled people. But now he's set up on his own, and he goes out and he does solar panel installs, electric installations and everything else. I think the only thing that he says he never touches is windows. Whereas you've got another idea, which is where you go, isn't it?
Yeah, you've seen on our videos we have various meetups. One is the South Central Self-Builders Meetup, and the idea of that group is we go to a campsite in the New Forest on the south coast. There are going to be more around the country, I'm sure, and then you get like-minded people together, people with experience, people without experience, and they all pitch in and help each other. So if you've got a task that you need doing but you're unsure how to do it, generally there'll be guys there that can lend a hand.
And just like I've done with the other link, Greg will pass me the link and I'll put it. It's a Facebook.
It's a Facebook group you need to join initially. There's a guy, Darren Thrower, he organises the group, and then on the events page of the Facebook, you'll see the upcoming meetings will be posted on the events page.
So I'll link that down below as well in the comments section. And someone did ask me the other day, how do I get to this link that you put in? And on a mobile device, it's a bit tricky. As you see our video shown on the screen, if you look at it in like landscape mode, it won't show. If you look at it in portrait mode, it will show. There's a little down arrow near where the title of the video is, and if you click that down arrow, it shows the video description, and all links are in there. So just watch out for that. If you're on a PC, again, click the down arrow just underneath the bottom right hand corner of the video.
It says show more on the left hand. Do you get the first two lines of the description? Then it says show more. You've got to click that. Yeah,
and then you'll see the video description with all the links in there. Someone said, and this is definitely a question for Greg, I noticed you've had a lot of rain in the last couple of days where you are. How do you stop condensation forming on your windows?
Yeah, it's what happens when it rains, your windows get wet on the outside, and when that water evaporates, it makes the glass really cold, and that's why you get more condensation on your windows inside your fan. And the only ways to combat that is to have good ventilation, so either have roof fans open, or if you can, just crack a little window open in the front of the cab, and then have some heating on, because warm air can hold a lot more moisture. If it's cold in your van, the moisture that's in that air will come out as condensation on any of your cold surfaces. So that's the best way, just heat and good ventilation. Yeah,
Greg's got Max fans, which are absolutely brilliant at that. And if you watched any of our recent videos, I recently bought a massive PC fan, 12 volt fan, and I've put it, we crack our roof vent open a little bit and put the fan on. And that is so good at clearing condensation as well. Like say, put the heating on just a little bit, and then just have some way of getting out the, the moist air out of the van. So yeah. Here's another one for you as well, Greg, because it relates to the Crafter and Sprinter vans. Rather than pulling out my ceiling to fit a roof rack, how can I access the lug nuts on my roof to fit a roof rack, or can I use riv nuts?
Well, you can use riv nuts. The only thing, when you put a bolt in the riv nut, that thread will leak because it's not a tight, watertight fit. You could put a blob of Sikaflex or something like that, and then Sikaflex over the top of them when you've finished. What I did was I used roofing bolts, self-drilling roofing bolts with like a fibre washer. I put a big blob of Sikaflex on the roof, drilled into that, and then Sikaflexed over the top of them, and that's how I secured my roof rack rails, because my van was finished, complete. So I just drilled into it from the top and just made sure that I sealed them up really. Yeah. So
there is a solution. On my van specifically, or rather the Peugeot Boxer, Citroen Relay and the Fiat Ducato, it's got kind of like little metal T pieces that stick out from the roof, and you can attach things to that. So
yeah, the Sprinter and Crafter has got little plastic plugs that you pull out, and that leaves you a bolt hole, which you'd normally attach to rails, but you do need access inside
to access to the other side.
Yeah, to put the nut on, so it's not possible if you've already lined your ceiling.
Yeah. Okay, this one's a bit tricky. Why do we have van conversions, and why didn't we buy a motorhome?
The simple answer for me is we actually looked at buying a second-hand motorhome before we even started our van build, and it was just the cost was just too prohibitive. Even a second-hand motorhome, they're just fortunes, cost-wise. So self-build was a way that we could have all of the luxury that we wanted, and we've got everything we need in this van for probably a third of the price of a second-hand motorhome.
Yeah, as an example, Darren, the Urban Motorhome, he's told you how much his van costs. It's about 15 grand, and I think it's about a 12-year-old van, which isn't a bad deal in all fairness. But say like ours is a pre-built van, call it a PVC panel van conversion, but it's still classed as a factory van. Greg's got something that you've made to your spec and needs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We've got something that we're finding is a compromise, because it's not kind of the layout. Yes, I've changed as much as I can, but I don't want to rip out and start again. So I guess that's just a balance of finding something that fits your needs and a compromise, or just kind of start from scratch and build it so it fits you exactly to the T. And you can, like you say, do it with the costs in mind for the materials you want to use.
I mean, the other thing, obviously, you know exactly how everything works as well.
Yeah.
So if you do have any problems further down the line, you built it, so you know where everything is.
Yeah, you know where the pipes are and the wires. So if you want to fit anything after that, you know not to drill through that bit because there's pipes behind it and that. Whereas, again, on Darren's video, someone fitted solar panels to his roof and drilled straight through some wires and caused a fire in his van. So that is the upside of building it yourself. You know where to and where not to go drilling and stuff. Here's another one as well that we've been avoiding for a couple of weeks now because there is no answer to it, but I'll try and give you one. Basically, Brexit is happening, well, in what, about 3 days. So how have we prepared for Brexit? The simple answer is yes, Brexit happens in 3 days. From our point of view, it's then got 12 months for the UK and the EU and everything to sort themselves out. And we're going to be in and out of the country for the next 12 months. So we're going to carry on as normal. And then once we're back in the UK, like towards December time, we'll work to whatever the new rules are, really.
Yeah, we did look quite extensively on the government's website of what was needed, and the only thing currently is international driving licences, which we've both got. So we're covered there. There was no information about visas and anything because I don't think they even know what is going to happen yet. So you just got to keep your ears to the ground, look on the websites and see what's coming up. But until we're told otherwise, we're just going to carry on.
Yeah, same here. No doubt, you know, within the next 6 months we'll all know exactly where we stand, hopefully. So is a good one for motorhome owners. Is it okay to leave my motorhome plugged into the electric on my driveway over the winter to keep my batteries topped up? And related to that, how can I stop the starter battery going flat over the winter in my motorhome? We obviously used to have a motorhome, so a little tip on ours was we would leave it plugged in on the driveway whenever we didn't use it, you know, for months on end, and it never caused any problems because the chargers are quite smart in there and they'll keep the batteries trickle charged, topped up. And we had one with a Sargent control panel system, a bit like in our van currently. We're in Greg's van today, by the way. And in our van on the Sargent system, you can select between leisure battery and vehicle battery. And if you're plugged in and you select vehicle battery, it used to trickle charge both batteries then. Yes, so it kept them both topped up. So, you know, try that on yours. I don't say it's going to work on everything, but try that on yours. If not, you've got the old C-Tech trickle chargers or something like that. Or even, I've seen some people use the little solar panel in the front windscreen.
I mean, we obviously just leave the solar panels to maintain the batteries, the leisure batteries in the back, and then if we did need to maintain the van battery, we'd just plug in a normal mains trickle charger and leave that on there.
And related to batteries, how long do you anticipate a lead acid battery, AGM battery, to last when you're full time in your van before you then have to replace the batteries? It's an odd one, this one, because it is the charge cycles really, and over time that amount of charge that they hold diminishes. And I guess it really is depending on your needs for that power, isn't it?
I mean, I've looked at it quite extensively, and as long as you keep your AGM batteries above 50%, so above sort of 12 volts, don't drop them any lower than 12 volts, they'll be at 50% depth of discharge, and then that's going to give you something like 1100 cycles, so maybe about 3 years use. So what I try and do is minimise my usage, or, you know, minimise what I'm going to use during the day. I look at what solar I've got during the day and then use it wisely and keep my batteries topped up all the time, and then they'll last for a long time. You know, it's only when you start discharging them a lot that's when you're going to get shortened lifespan.
And when we talk about a charge cycle, as an example for this, my Victron app tells me how many full charge cycles my batteries had. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know about the lithium AGM things. So my AGM batteries are about 2 months old. They're about 2.5 months old, and they've had one charge cycle. So that's one really big discharge and then charged up again. And it is that discharge that is the charge cycle count, isn't it? So I'm imagining if I follow Greg's example and, you know, solar panel keeps the batteries topped up, then, like say, that should be a fair few years out of the battery. At least 3 is what I've accounted for before I've got a little bit of a squirreled away budget to put new batteries in, sort of thing. But it is what it is. It's van life. You don't always have great solar power. You don't always drive somewhere to charge them up if you've got battery to battery charging or a split charge relay. So yeah, the less times you can take it below, I mean, I use 12.2 as a kind of example for me, but the less time you can take it below that state of discharge where you are taking out, you know, more than 50%, then the better, really.
Yeah, ours have never been below 12.4, which is about 70%. Still got 70% capacity in them, so I reckon they'll last for a good 1,500 cycles at that rate.
But he does sit here at night with little tea lights on. Right then, so how do we decide where our mini little convoy is going? I spent about 6 months pinning things where I'd like to go on a map, and most of the time we have a shufty around that area and pick somewhere close, or say, well, we'll try that one out.
Well, we've got experience from our previous trip of places that we've been that we'd like you guys to have a look at, so we've suggested those. Or it's a combination of using Google Maps, satellite view, or just searching for places of interest, like we did when we went to the fort.
Yeah. And that goes on with another question, is do you always follow Sat-Nav, or do you wing it sometimes and it's 50-50? Because we've already done a lot of like Google Map searching, most of the time the destination we choose, we know where it is, and if it isn't right when we're there, we'll scooch around there and just drive around and see if we can find somewhere better. And speaking about driving, final question is, do the girls share the driving?
In our case, no. Only just for no other reason that I enjoy driving. I feel comfortable driving the van, and Lou's quite happy just to sit there and enjoy the ride, I think.
Yeah. In ours, pretty much ditto. I love driving. I can drive for hours. Mandy loves sitting there reading a book or taking pictures out the window. And now and again, if I'm tired or that, you know, she just turns around and goes, I've not driven for 4 weeks, can I drive? Then she can drive, but she's fully insured to drive. She's got a driving permit, international driving permit, what it was called, and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, Lou's the same. She's fully insured to drive the van, got all the driving licenses, so we can do it if we need to, but we just find that I tend to drive most of the time.
Yeah. Right then. So that is the end of this week's episode, which is sorry about being long, but you guys do send us some interesting questions.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah. So thanks very much. And any more questions, like I say, comment section down below, or ping us an email over via our website or via the email, which is in our About Us page on YouTube. And we also answer questions off Instagram and that. Someone did ask, do I have to wait a week for the answer? And no, we pick the answers, or we pick the questions, but we still answer them as people ask them. So we just thought we'd include them because some of the interesting ones you guys might be interested in as well. So, right then, until the next one, take care.
Enjoy yourself, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.